So the baseline is, what is our acceptable use policy for AI in our organization? And that's just like saying, what is the acceptable policy for using emails, internet access, social media, where you're referring to company news or other things? Those things exist for that. What is your acceptable use for using AI in the company's AI or other AI? What is your AI harmful content incident response policy? How are you looking for harmful content? How do users report LLM hallucinations? What do they do? What is your incident response to that? There's a whole lot to unpack there. And what we've seen is when companies deploy AI without any of those things, and certainly without workforce education, it just doesn't go well. It doesn't go far beyond zero shot, single shot prompting and copy and paste. You're not really getting value, right? But the ones that do deploy with governance and with employee education, with proper acceptable use, with proper leadership, governance board, with proper policies.
Welcome to Podcast Wise, Perspectives, Cybersecurity, and AI. If your organization is using public AI to process sensitive data, you aren't just innovating, you're camping in a tent during a lightning storm. No walls, no locks, and no audit trail. In the world of defense and healthcare, that's not just a risk, it's a business-ending liability. Today, we're joined by a man who has spent 3 decades inside the infrastructure giants that built the modern world, from Cisco and IBM to Oracle. Tom Bendien is the founder and CEO of GT Edge AI, and he's on a mission to bring sovereignty back to the enterprise. With the CMMC 2.0 mandate looming on November 10th, we're cutting through the AI hype to discuss the G-word, governance. We're talking about building an AI operating system that keeps your data off the public web and firmly under your control. This is the roadmap for secure intelligence. Let's dive in with Tom Bendien. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Hey, Tom.
How's it going there? Good to meet you, Tin.
Likewise. So, all right. So let's get right into it. So, Tom, we're seeing a land grab for AI in the enterprise world. But in the DMV area, the conversation always circles back to the G word, governance. You've built an entire OS to address this. Is the current obsession with the big box cloud AI actually a liability for defense contractors today?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, right? There's a lot to unpack. So I think regulated industries such as the Defense Industrial Base, Department of War, they have very clearly defined regulatory frameworks on the books, like in particular CMMC. So the Cyber Security Maturity Model Certification, level 1, level 2, level 3. And so out of the gate, any IT service or product that's used by the Defense Industrial Base or the Department of War has to be compliant out of the gate. And AI is not an exception to that. Now, I think some of us know that, for example, with the Anthropic situation with the Pentagon and what have you, that governance is still able to have exceptions and things applied to it. But in general, across the defense industrial base, and certainly the large number of subcontractors that are out there, they're going to need to look at having CMMC compliance for whatever AI products they're using.
Mm-hmm. Now, we hear the term sovereign AI tossed around. So for a CEO, what is the functional difference between using a public LLM and a sovereign AI ecosystem like yours?
Yep. So a couple of the things there are that the mainstream AI providers, essentially, they're essentially just providing you with the ability to run inference, and they have a growing number of apps that they can provide as part of their service. And the things that are missing there are things like having basically a way to have a proxy or having some control point or a control enforcement point in between your users and the AI service providers, right? So essentially, it's like saying, I'm basically going to give my guys better access to the internet. I'm not going to have a firewall there for access to the internet or anything else. No whitelist or blacklist rules, right, for blocking certain URLs. Right now, this whole ecosystem is a little bit immature. There are tool providers out there that help with some of those things, but sovereign AI has more to do with AI that is fully controlled and managed. That has a risk management framework and a compliance framework around it, with your guys and your employees accessing mainstream AI is most likely lacking all of those things, let alone financial controls, let alone role-based access, let alone data privacy, let alone the ability and the potential risk of loss of intellectual property. So there's a lot of controls that most enterprises have for their enterprise application stack that are not present out of the box with mainstream AI providers.
Now, with CMMC 2.0 looming November 10th, what is the biggest blind spot defense contractors have when integrating AI into their internal systems?
Yeah, I mean, I think out of the gate, if they want to use AI products, they need to have CMMC compliant AI products. And to deploy CMMC level 2 compliant products to process and store and transmit controlled and classified information at level 2, you need to have a governance framework, you need to have tools and products, and you need to have ways of having your audit trails, access controls, all the things that are no different than any of your other applications. And the products that can do those things there's not a lot of them out there. I mean, we've been working on this now for over 2 years, and we have got CMMC level 1 compliance on our AI platform, which is a combination of our software and our infrastructure. We have got level 1 there now. We're going towards level 2, and we're getting ready for our C3PAO audit in June. But at that point, we will have a compliant level 2 AI product that can be provided to the DIB and the DOW. But notwithstanding all of that, if a defense contractor, whether it's a large prime or it's a subcontractor, are going to need to look for CMMC compliance to meet the flow down requirements from the primes, and also they're going to understand that if they get audited and if they get audited by the DIBCAC or what have you, or their primes, and they're using AI products without CMMC compliance to process QE or FCI, they're going to have a big problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that.
Nobody wants that, no. And we need to protect our information. That's why CMMC exists. That's why we have it. AI should not be or is not an exception to that rule, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So now most founders build an app. You built an operating system.
Yep.
Why was it necessary to go that deep into the stack to solve the compliance problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's like saying, if you can build an app and connect it straight to the internet without a firewall, and you can build apps and run apps without a SIM. You can run an app without observability tools. You can just kind of take your chances and not have any audit logs or any governance or controls around your app and have at it. Risking breaches and data loss, all these horrible things which is what SIM tools and other tools and compliance and governance procedures, acceptable use policies cover. Right. And so if you build an AI app, which are a lot of cool AI apps out there, then if you don't have something like an AIOS platform upon which to run all of that has all those tools built into it, which, we've just built those tools into it from our industry experience. I felt that those are the things that are needed. If you don't have that, then you're significantly putting your organization at risk. Reputational, financial damages, ransomware attacks, governance, compliance risk, various things. So I felt that a different approach was needed, that we needed to figure out how to govern AI and how to manage and control it with the types of traditional tooling approaches that you see for any enterprise application.
Okay. So basically you're saying, building an app is like having a house without the AI app is like having a house without the doors, the windows, the walls. You're just having like a framework. You're just
Yeah.
standing
Yeah.
inside the house where
Yeah. Pretty much.
with the OS you're building with the windows, with the
The
door.
infrastructure.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the analogy there, I like it. It's like saying I'm going on a hiking trip, and I maybe have a tent, and I have a bit of a tent in which I can sleep and maybe eat food or something like that. But that's not very secure, right? A tent is not really much protection. But if I now have a house that has security alarms and video surveillance cameras and good locks and role-based access to the house where only certain people have the keys, this is a very simplistic explanation, but it's probably quite relatable, because literally if you just build an app connected to AI service providers and go have at it and start conducting your business that way, you have a lot of risk there. You have a lot of risk, and you have no audit trail. You don't know who came in and out. You have no idea. And all your people are out there doing their work, camping in the woods with tents, and you have no idea who's coming in and out or where they are or anything.
Yeah. So when we talk about control unclassified information, CUIs, how does GT Edge AI ensure that data never leaks into the broader training sets of global AI models?
Yep. Yep. So there's a couple of things there. So if you're using an external service provider, such as if you want to run an LLM that's running external to our infrastructure, so we have our own physical infrastructure. We're hosted at Equinix. We have our own physical compute networking and storage, including GPU servers that we use to run local models. If you've got to understand your data flows, you've got to understand where's the data transmitted, processed, and stored. And so when in our SSP, all of that is very well documented. And if you're using external service providers, they have to be FedRAMP moderate for CUI. And so what you do there is, of course, you go and you look at the different inference service providers, and you have to check very carefully, say, are they FedRAMP moderate? Because there's a tiny fraction of inference providers out there that are actually FedRAMP moderate. And then you just need to get hold of their attestations and various things. And when you put that into your own SSP, in our case, an our SSP, then that's part of your compliance package that then goes to the C3PAO assessor, and then they will assess your data flows and the external service providers you're using to ensure they're properly compliant. And then they'll obviously take a close look at your internal data flows inside our compute network and storage stack as to where's that QE flowing, who has access to it, where's your AX logs, where's your evidence, all that kind of, that's really what's important if you're deploying an AI solution there.
So I feel like I just went down a road of a lot of compliance and governance. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah, there
steps
is.
to get protected, to be compliant, and to have that governance through to get that CUI protected, right? Um,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So now you operate in two of the most regulated space on earth. What is the one governance challenge that both a hospital CEO and a defense prime share?
The concern, yeah, I mean, I would say probably, having an attack surface, an attack surface that is not well understood, right? So most people don't truly understand how AI systems and agents and workflows actually work. There are very few people that truly understand it deeply. So having sort of an attack surface that is difficult to quantify and difficult to understand will be one thing. And then, there's the data leakage problem, right? It's just having a lack of clarity about what data is going where and what happens to that data when it goes to external service providers, because there's no real standard there either. If you're dealing in really truly kind of a Wild West type of environment where using AI has tremendous benefit and in many ways, but it introduces all kinds of new, attack surfaces and a lot of unknown risks and unknown things to take into account.
Yeah. And also like the data, we think about it, the data that hospitals and the defense holds is very important. That's why they're like one of the top
Yeah.
people to get to, right? So like
Yep.
hospital data is human data, like, all of the
The PII.
PII from there, and then
PII,
defense
PHI,
prime is,
absolutely. Yep.
yeah, and
Yep.
then defense prime is uh our government, right? So
Yep.
all of
National
the data,
security.
yeah, it's a big security risk. So that's why
Yep.
the attackers want them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they wanna steal our intellectual property. They want to reduce our capability,
Mhm.
reduce our operational readiness. And as far as the excuse me, the PHI goes, I mean, obviously it's very sensitive information that should be protected, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
So in terms of the defense industrial base, how does moving compute to the edge increase the attack surface for state-sponsored cyber threats?
Yeah, so if you're using a local compute or using a workstation in the field or what have you, essentially it's just an enterprise application that you're running at the edge, or you're running it in a portable device. And so at the end of the day, how the data is being transmitted and processed by that device, and how it's stored in the device, and what sort of access controls you have on it, physical access controls, logical controls, are even more important, because of course that edge device could be in the field. It could be at a facility that's not manned, right? It could be at a facility that's running in somewhere where there's no physical staff. And then your ability to respond to a physical attack or a logical attack might be limited, more so than, infrastructure that's in a more of a centralized location like a data center, where it's a little easier to control physical access. And it's probably also a little bit easier to control logical access.
Yeah. And also like if an individual goes camping, right,
Yes.
with the device and the
Device and a Starlink, yep.
device and a Starlink, you could
Yeah.
do work there, but you know, you're a government
Yep,
contractor or you work in defense or even a
yep,
hospital CEO trying to take some time off, but is
yep.
working
Stay
while
connected, yeah.
staying connected. It is still there, right? The threat surface is still there.
Absolutely. So it's a whole different attack surface, and in particular in the case of Starlink, right? I mean, it's a US system. Elon Musk, did a great job building it, but you also need to look at the ground station infrastructure. So
Mm.
all these satellites have to downlink all that information to the ground somewhere, and these ground stations are all over the world, and some of them are very secure, and some may be a little less secure. And so the problem is you don't really know what's going to happen when you start running the Starlink out there. You have to understand those data flows deeply and document them in your SSP and have evidence and understand the risk, and then potentially make decisions saying, "Hey, it's not acceptable to operate the Starlink in this or that physical location because it might be using a downlink station that is not compliant to our needs or our specs." Right. So it's yeah.
Now, can AI driven governance move us towards a continuous compliance model where the audit is essentially a real time dashboard rather than an annual event?
Yeah, no, no. Firstly, we need to get to that point. Also, on the threat side, I mean, we're seeing with this mythos, thing that's going on right now is that attackers that are using AI are able to, just exponentially increase. The exploits can be exponentially discovered and then can be attacked. Right. And so what that means on the blue team side, on the defensive side, we've got to have AI, automated AI processes that will, detect these attacks and then on a carefully scripted basis, be able to take actions and like a SOAR, right? They need to be able to take action to remediate threats or to apply patches, but that also needs to be done very, very carefully because you don't want, AI suddenly going and deleting a database just because it thought there was a risk to it, right? Say, well,
Right.
there's a risk to our database, so why don't we just delete the database and the risk goes away? You
Ooh.
don't want that. No, we don't want that. No,
No.
but we should absolutely be using AI powered automation on the blue team side, but it has to be implemented thoughtfully and carefully.
Yeah. And also have that human in the loop part of things.
Well, the thing is that that's difficult too because these attacks are happening so quickly. They're so well automated that you need to figure out what can I allow my AI to do and what does need the human in the loop and the
Mhm.
oversight. Is most recently with some of the new models coming out that can detect vulnerabilities and create attacks very, very quickly. You're just not going to be able to have human in the loop for everything. It just won't scale. So
Yeah.
you have to figure out how do I put sufficient oversight and controls over my AI to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails and do something that's bad. So
Ooh, we got our work cut out for us.
yeah, well, it's fun though. I mean, it's just a new thing, and we can do it. I mean, we can definitely do it, but it requires some upskilling, and it requires some new ways of looking at things, and it requires people to take action and actually do something rather than just sitting there and hoping for the best.
Yeah. Now, in the for a mid market defense firm, what is the projected business cost of delaying their AI governance strategy?
Well, I mean, the harm of delaying AI governance could be, millions of dollars. I mean, it could be that they're running a program and they're using AI products to process controlled and classified information, or even FCI, right? They might be processing work statements or billing information or other things and using AI tools for convenience. And then if there's an audit by the prime contractor or the government, they're going to fail that audit. If they've attested to being, self-assessed compliant at level 1 or level 2, and they don't have controls, over their AI, they'll be looking at, significant fines and penalties and possibly being disbarred. So, the cost of not having AI governance in place and not having proper CMMC compliance in place over your AI could be career ending and business ending, and you could be going to jail too. You could be going to jail. So it doesn't get a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
So
The ROI on getting your CMMC certification is is
well, it's
much better than, getting not getting it, right? So,
Yeah, well, it's now the CMMC compliance is table stakes, and CMMC applies to all your IT. There's no exception for AI. There's no exception for it. It's just an IT product, really.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's no reason for there to be an exception, and there isn't an exception. It's the data flows. Where is it transmitted? Where is it processed? Where is it stored? Right? Those principles still apply to whatever AI products you're using.
Yeah. So how does your OS play with legacy system? So do executive need to rip and replace, or is there a bridge to these high security environments?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a rip and replace. It's more of like putting a firewall into your environment, right? So it's kind of like in the same way that you would put a network firewall in front of your applications and between your applications and the internet, putting in an AIOS server, or whether it's hosted by us or whether it's hosted on prem or what have you, or in cloud. All you're really doing is you're putting in place a policy enforcement gateway that is actually going to monitor all the traffic and quantify the traffic, create the audit trails, the usage statistics, the financial controls, right? So it knows how much you're needing to pay for the tokens. It knows how much your storage costs. It's logging all that. It can visualize all that information. It can then put in what we call compliance mode, which is the compliance wrapper that then pops up warning messages when your employees are using the compliant and approved AI environment, in this case, coming off of our OS server. So really, it's designed to integrate quite seamlessly with your current AI application, your current application stack, and it also has its own API endpoint. So again, the idea of the iOS server is that you put it there as your policy enforcement point and your governance tool, and then all your employees will connect to the server. They will not connect directly to the mainstream models. And so by going through that service, like going through a firewall, right, you can have all the logs, you can see what's going on, you can give role-based access, you can do all the things that you would normally do for an enterprise application.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So now, given your proximity to DC, what is one piece of upcoming legislation that every tech CEO should be watching over the next 12 months?
Yeah, in terms of AI, I think, right? Yeah, so I would say currently, to my knowledge, there's not really a single piece of AI legislation that's in play. There are certainly state level AI regulations in play, California, Colorado, New York, Illinois, I think they all have their state level regulations. Maryland has some, Virginia has some too, and so the federal government does have an AI strategy. They are working on some regulations, but with the current administration, I believe that the sentiment is more trending towards less regulation. So for the CEOs of a company, it presents quite a quandary, right? Because especially if you're a multinational company, or even if you're a company that has employees in different states in the US, these AI regulations can apply to you, and you could be facing penalties and various fines and things if whatever workflows or use cases you're running with your AI products or the products you're using are not compliant. And to go a step further, you look at the EU with the EU AI Act. The good thing about the EU AI Act is that it is one framework, right?
Hmm.
It's one framework it's reasonably well defined. I would say there's still a lot of gray areas there too, but at least you have a reasonably centralized framework to go from, right? In terms of American CEOs looking at doing business in the United States, I would say the challenge for them is they're dealing with a patchwork of regulations, and there really isn't a unified sort of AI regulatory framework that's out there. There's just a patchwork of different things. There are people that are lobbying for various different AI governance frameworks. There's a lot of people there that are trying to help and trying to put in place frameworks for responsible and ethical AI. But from a legal perspective, I haven't really seen anything that's definitive that someone can apply across the board.
Yeah. And also like the guardrails that needs to be put in place that
Yep.
for usage, right? And also
Yep.
enterprise wise, I think also we should in your own company should have its own policies, right? About
Most definitely.
how to use the AIs, the different LLMs, and why to use it, how to use it, which
Yep.
data should go in there. Those kind of different policies is also, and also the training, right?
Yep.
Like we can use AI all you want, but there's a training that needs to be involved also, because a lot of people like to copy paste the wrong stuff
Yeah.
into the AI, right? And so there needs to be training also just like cybersecurity awareness training, there should be a AI awareness training, I believe.
Well, no, you're exactly right. There's no doubt. I mean, arguably, the impact to an organization of having poor or non-existent AI governance in their organization could be extremely dangerous or extremely impactful, right? The things that come to mind is, table stakes is you have to look at just protecting your data. Where is it processed? Where is it stored? Where is it transmitted? Right? That's just table stakes for any enterprise application that involves sensitive data. Once you get past that, definitely creating acceptable use policies for AI in your organization, putting in place role-based access to LLMs, to data sets that need to be processed, legal, line of business, IT, all these different functional areas have different roles and personas that act in these functional areas. And they need to have, just like you would for any other company data, those departments all have role-based access to data sets. And then the different employees, right? You might have red teamer employees that are doing offensive security that need access to uncensored LLMs, right? They might need that for analyzing ransomware and malware. They might need to create example malicious code. They might need to look at doing hashes, working with hashes. But then, of course, you don't want the rest of your employees to have access to these uncensored models. And from a financial perspective, you may have some developers that need access to very expensive models that are high cost per input-output tokens. Other employees don't need that. They may have, they may be fine with using a lower cost model or a local model. So there are a lot of variables here in terms of the infrastructure and the compliance in general. And then you go to, like you mentioned earlier, like the employee training, right? So the baseline is, what is our acceptable use policy for AI in our organization? And that's just like saying, what is the acceptable policy for using emails, internet access, social media, where you're referring to company news or other things? Those things exist for that. What is your acceptable use for using AI in the company's AI or other AI? What is your AI, harmful content incident response policy? How are you looking for harmful content? How do users report LLM hallucinations? What do they do? What is your incident response to that? There's a whole lot to unpack there. And what we've seen is when companies deploy AI without any of those things, and certainly without workforce education, it just doesn't go well. It doesn't go far beyond zero shot, single shot prompting and copy and paste. You're not really getting value, right? But the ones that do deploy with governance and with employee education, with a proper acceptable use, with proper leadership, governance board, with proper policies, it works very well.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Now, I have two more questions for you. I'm
Sure.
gonna dive a little bit deeper. So if you've chosen to build this in the heart of the DMV,
Yep.
how has the unique culture of the contractor capital shaped your perspective on what secure technology actually looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in terms of secure AI technology and deployment, we decided as our business strategy to focus on the organizations that are governed by CMMC. So, every AI company or every company really needs to pick where it's going to focus its efforts, and we decided to focus on CMMC and also healthcare. Because we care about national security, we care about people's health. We also do a lot of work with education. So if you look at our website, you'll see we're constantly involved in education. So yeah, we basically picked the target markets that we're going after, the types of organizations, and then the next step was to say, okay, what is a regulatory framework that applies to those different customer types and profiles? And then how do we now apply those regulatory frameworks to our AI platform? And then, where we've ended up with is building our own AI operating system, with some of the features we talked about. We've decided that we are hosting our own infrastructure at Equinix. So, Equinix is, in my opinion, the gold standard for data centers around the world. They have the best security, the best networking, quality. They have it all there. So we decided to go with Equinix there, and we decided that we would build our own infrastructure because it's actually easier for us to govern our own infrastructure we've built ourselves than it is to run our applications in public clouds or other clouds. So we've taken that approach of saying, hey, we want to be fully in control end to end of our whole stack. And that way it reduces risk for us, it reduces risk for the customers, and actually also has financial and performance benefits because we can design the architecture exactly to our liking. And that has benefits for our different customers with their various different use cases, right? There's a bit more work up front. There's a little bit more capital investment up front, yes. But over time, that strategy is paying off. And, I can sleep a lot more comfortably at night knowing that our guys and myself are fully in control of our stack,
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yeah, because that way you don't have to worry about the third party situation where, like you don't know if the public cloud, there's an issue. You would have
Yeah.
to, you know, deal with that. And also in your SSP, you would have to write, inherited by, the
Yeah.
control is inherited by, AWS or, uh,
Yeah.
you know, Google or
Yeah,
something.
I mean, I think, again, our software runs on Kubernetes. So we did want to have it be able to be deployed in other cloud provider environments or other data centers. So we offer the AIOS software in our AI products in sort of a managed hosted scenario delivery method, but also the product, the AI product, the AIOS software and what have you is designed to be portable, right? So you can deploy it on a workstation, you can deploy it on a GPU laptop. You can deploy it in different data centers. You can deploy it in public cloud. It's just that we've chosen to do it in physical infrastructure that we control directly just for all those reasons, compliance, financial reasons, control, the ability to, really build it the way we think it should be built and the way we want to build it. So, yeah.
And sleep better.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. There's obviously a bit more responsibility that comes with having your own physical infrastructure, right?
Mhm.
As long as you have all your observability tools, your alerting, and you've got, your staff trained and ready to take action when needed, you have good documentation, then it works well. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, looking past the spreadsheets and regulations, what is the North Star for GTA Edge AI? What is the world you're trying to build?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we're looking to build AI products that remove vendor lock-in. We want to help people have vendor neutral solutions where they can decide how they want to deploy AI, what guardrails they want to put on it, and that they're not locked into a certain provider's way of doing things. So removing lock-in, making it much easier to make an AI system compliant, being able to implement your own guardrails that suit your organization or your users, right? So you can actually finely tune it that way. Being able to actually even start your own AI service provider business, right? Because
Mhm.
right now there's only about 7 mainstream AI players, and there are public inference providers. There are companies that host GPUs where you can run open source models, and that's all very nice. But there's not really, you look at like ISP businesses or managed service provider businesses, there's not really an easy way for them to create managed AI products that are fully under their control and that are vendor neutral, right? Unlike other types of products where you can buy server software and then build your own fully end-to-end managed service around that. So my sort of hope is that, and we're already doing it actually, my hope is that we can enable other people to build businesses that can use our software, that can use our data center in some cases, or that might like to say, hey, I have a data center and I want to create my own AI service provider business, or I want to create highly specialized AI for a certain client or for a geographical market, a geography in the world. I want to have sovereign AI where all my data stays in my locality or my country or my state or something. Because right now, the only real option to do that is the mainstream AI providers, and by definition, you have some challenges with lock-in. You have some challenges with data sovereignty and privacy, and also, they potentially limit innovation because you're sort of locked into,
To
you're
their
locked into your way of doing things, their ecosystem. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Now, I want to thank you, Tom, to joining me on this episode. I learned a lot. So thank you. And thank you
yeah.
for your time. And thank you to the Wise crew for watching. And I will see you guys next time.
Look forward to. Bye, Tim. Good to see
Bye.
you. Bye
Likewise.
bye.
Bye.